Welcome back to College Sports, the Geeks,
Geeks.
episode 7. It's going to be a doozy. We got a lot to talk about today. Musso, what are we looking for, first of all?
Dude, college football. Remember this week between Christmas and New Year's growing up, Derek? They called it what was Capital One Bowl Mania. ESPN would put the slogan on, or the most wonderful time of the year, the greatest week of the year. Well, it's not exactly like that anymore, but Derek, bowl games, it's football. It's football. You get to sit back and watch the holidays. You go in your little blanket and you watch some football. We got to start bowl week, feel like it started early this year with Boise State, our squad playing UCLA on Saturday. Horrible game. CJ Tiller couldn't complete a forward pass. Ashton Genty's a monster. Boise needs a quarterback, but Gronk goes on the field, racing blitz the T-Dog. You got a bunch of shenanigans. That just sums up bowl season, Derek. But they're awful showing for Boise State's offense, and it was a not great way to inspire optimism in the fan base heading into a pivotal offseason.
Yeah, before we go into Boise State, though, let's just talk just general census. Bowl games, Ohio beat Georgia Southern 41-21. These are games that if you're not a college football geek, you're
Not a
not
geek.
watching, but you got to watch some of these games. Florida A&M Howard 30-26 at that game. Obviously, Vice President Harris was at that game because it was a good game, 30-26. Then when you look at a game in overtime, Jacksonville State versus the Raging Cajuns,
Hey, congrats to
4-31.
Jacksonville State. First ever bowl win. They weren't even eligible, but there weren't enough 6-6 teams. They get in. Congrats to the Jacksonville State team and Rich Rodriguez. Go Cox, baby.
Yeah, it was beautiful for them to finally get a bowl game. Finally, they had to because, like you mentioned, not enough six win teams. They get in, which I think is just great to see teams that are not supposed to, not expected to get in, but they do so and they win in a huge way. Appalachian State, Miami, Ohio. That's a great matchup. If you're looking at both teams, Appalachian State has a great program. Miami, Ohio is on the come up. It was a defensive game. App State wins 13-9 in that one. And then obviously you got to look at the Mountain West and Fresno State. They deliver in a huge way against New Mexico State. They win 37-10 in a big way.
What happened to Fresno State this year? At one point, they were like nationally ranked. They were 8-1 or 8-2 or something, and then they somehow stumbled down the stretch, lose their last two games. I mean, it was a disaster ending for Fresno State, who was the best team in the Mountain West for most of the season. They beat the champs in Boise State, and then New Mexico comes to Fresno State, one of the worst teams in the conference, and punks them. Weird ending. I guess they found their groove back and clapped New Mexico State, but that's a really disappointing season for Fresno State.
Yeah, they had some turnaround. They had some issues, not necessarily just player wise, but just
Back injuries, yeah.
it's just execution is what it came down to. They weren't able to execute in the big time when they needed to. But Texas Tech, California, that's a game where you're talking California moving over to the ACC, kind of a weird move, I guess. And Texas Tech, they got a powerful offense. They win that one
Hey,
34.
Power Five bowl games are always fun to watch. Texas Tech, Derek, I have to say, this is a team I had circled on my paper earlier this season as a team that could contend for the Big 12. Then they have a tremendously awful start where they lose three of their first four games. Good rebound to finish the season 7-6 for Texas Tech. And with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12, circle this team. This is one of the best programs in that conference right now, led by Joey McGuire.
Last one before we go back to Boise. Western Kentucky, Old Dominion. Western Kentucky wins that one in a nail biter, 38-35. And you want to talk about a quarterback and a non-power five team. Talk about Western Kentucky's freshman quarterback. 40 for 52, 383 yards, five touchdowns, and just one pick. That's exceptional. Yes, they ran the football a little bit, but you talk about an offense that team could throw it. That he can sling it. He has a bright future.
Hayden Veldkamp, the name. He's 6'6", 235. We're talking a Justin Herbert lookalike. Five tutties, let him back from 28 nothing. And we are the geeks. So here's a little fact for everyone. This is the famous Toastery Bowl, the first ever and only ever famous Toastery Bowl. It was supposed to be the Bahamas, but the stadium had some damages from a storm in the past year. So the Bahamas Bowl was canceled. But The Bahamas Bowl usually produces chaos games. Even if the Bahamas Bowl is on American soil on in North Carolina, you can't take the crazy out of the Bahamas Bowl, Derek. What a freaking game between these two teams, and that's what bowl season's all about.
Yeah, and when you look at these two teams, Old Dominion was in FCS, CAA, in Western Kentucky. There was talk about them going from FBS to FCS a couple years ago. Now you're talking about a great football game, both teams in FBS. Just a great matchup for offense. That's a game to watch out for. And watch out for this Western Kentucky squad because they got a quarterback who can sling it. They ran the ball for 35 times in that game, so they definitely have some balance. But let's talk about Boise State. Obviously, freshman quarterback in Tiller hadn't started a game, and it showed. That's the first reaction. But before we dive into the game itself, Spencer Danielson, a lot of Boise State fans are saying wrong decision. That's terrible. Why'd you hire him? In-house candidate, not what you want to do. Relax, relax, people.
Relax.
It's the first game that he's head coach against the UCLA team with Chip Kelly, and we know what Chip Kelly's done in the past. So it's not like they're playing some slouchy team here. They just weren't able to run the football in the second half, and they tried to throw the ball too much in the second half. It was just the first half was great. Don't get me wrong. Second half execution just wasn't there, running the football, and then you put too much pressure on a young quarterback, and when you put too much pressure on the young quarterback, they're not more than likely than not they're not going to deliver, and that's what happened with the Broncos.
And we need to pump the brakes, like you said, on all of these people losing their minds. Andy Avalos was the coach for 3 seasons, no Mountain West championships. Spencer Danielson, the coach for 3 games, Mountain West champion. Spencer Danielson will be fine. Boise loves him, but he's a defensive minded guy. He's got to fix the defense. Andy Avalos was a defensive minded guy in the plaguing of the Boise State. The Achilles heel of the program now is the defense. They've had some defections to the transfer portal. Taylon Green is a massive, massive loss. They would have won that game last weekend if Taylon Green was there. Massive loss. Now, offensively, CJ Tiller, it was rough. His passing with that running game of Genty and Helani, man. Sad to see Helani go, but Genty, Boise State's offense is going to miss a beat no matter who's the quarterback because if you think about it, UCLA is the top 20 defense in the country. They have Gabriel and Grayson Murphy, who are both NFL caliber pass rushers who were wrecking havoc. And Boise State, Derek, the story of the game, we said it early when we were texting about it. They got 9 points in the first 2 quarters. They made it into the red zone inside the 10 3 times, and they failed to score a touchdown. They were all field goals. When you get in the red zone, you got to capitalize. You got to capitalize. They couldn't. Freshman quarterback, there's reasons to be encouraged about Boise State. You got to fix the defense. It's a young defense. They need experience. They got it this year, and they played well down the stretch. So I'm not overly worried, but man, in the group of five, even more so than the Power Five, it's all about quarterback play. So Boise State needs to nail a quarterback situation. I don't think you can go into next season with just CJ Tiller and Maddox Madsen as your two quarterbacks options. Boise needs to get something else. And if you're UCLA, Ethan Garbers looked fantastic when he came in the game. UCLA definitely has their quarterback of the future. And I see a little bit why, Derek. Dante Moore got out of there and why Chip Kelly liked Ethan Garbers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Boise, I think you hit it right on the nail on the head. They need a quarterback, and they need it badly. I don't think it's just add to the quarterback room. I think you need a starting quarterback in the
I,
portal.
I don't disagree.
I think that's one thing you look at. If you're UCLA, the Dante Moore situation, you bring it up, and we'll talk portal right now because you brought it up. Dante Moore to Oregon makes absolutely no sense to me. You're going to go to Oregon where you originally committed to, and you switched your commitment 3 times. Now you're going back to Oregon, and you're going to be the backup for a season behind Dylan Gabriel. Why are you transferring from UCLA to Oregon if you well, I guess it makes a little bit of sense because at UCLA you probably would have been the third best quarterback, and Oregon you'd be the second best quarterback, but you started at UCLA at certain points in the season. Why you should have gone to a program where you were actually going to start. I thought Michigan State was an answer. I thought Michigan was an answer. I thought there was a lot of other teams that you could possibly start. Now you look, Ohio State could have been an answer for him. I don't understand why you go to Oregon where you know you're going to be the backup quarterback. If you're him, you are a five-star commit. Go to a school where you're actually going to start if you're going to transfer because Chip Kelly, he's a great offensive mind. And if you stay there, you probably would have started in a year or two. But instead, you transfer, you go to Oregon, and you're going to have to sit a year under Dan Lanning, and who knows what their offense is going to be, especially with offensive coordinators changing places all over the place. Who knows? I just don't like the move by Dante Moore to.
And and it's not like he's going to be the backup at a school that's coached by Lincoln Riley or a proven NFL quarterback developer. What track record does Oregon have producing NFL quarterbacks? I mean,
Mariota,
yeah, Mariota was good for a
Herbert.
couple seasons. Yeah, I mean, I guess Mariota and Herbert, but there's not a long list of that. I guess in recent years, Herbert as well, but they have very different game styles as well. Herbert was a pure pocket passer. I mean, Dan Lanning's produced Bo Nix, so I guess it's not as bad as I'm thinking right off the bat. But
But
you're
what
right.
are these guys doing in the NFL level? You talk about Herbert. Yes, Herbert is a guy who's elite and he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback, however you want to verbiage it. But what has he done at the NFL level in terms of winning a Super Bowl? Nothing.
And they
So
didn't, and they
you look
haven't
at
put
it that way, I'm not really sure Oregon has really done anything from a quarterback standpoint.
And what we gave, and Dan Lanning had Bo Nix, who was supposed to be the all-world quarterback the last 2 seasons, and they fumbled the bag down the stretch. Like I said they would, Derek. I said never trust the Oregon Ducks. I said the Washington Huskies were going to go undefeated. You laughed at me. You laughed at me, and guess what? They're probably going to win the national championship. No,
Uh,
we'll see. We'll see all about that. But yeah, the Dante Moore situation doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Most people who enter the portal make little sense to me. Like Kyle McCord, Ohio State's quarterback, it's become apparent that he wanted a guaranteed starting job, and that's why he entered the portal. Ohio State wasn't going to give him to that. Ryan Day, there's pressure on him. He's got to beat Michigan, so they wasn't just going to hand McCord back the job. But McCord was one drive away from beating Michigan in the Big House and sending Ohio State to the college football playoff and the Big Ten championship game. So he's a fantastic quarterback. Now, when he entered the portal, I had no idea where he's going, Derek. I'll tell you, I didn't think Syracuse was even going to crack the list, let alone
I thought
land
he was
a
going to Nebraska for
star
sure.
quarterback. And Derek, this Syracuse team hired Fran Brown. Many think he's the number one recruiter in the country. Georgia's defensive backs coach. Syracuse is putting together a recruiting class and they're plucking people out of the portal left and right. And they got one of the most accomplished and proven college prospects in the portal. What do you make of McCord to Syracuse? This is so weird.
It's a weird decision. Personally, I was a little surprised you went to Syracuse of all schools, but it makes sense in the standpoint of you wanted to get a solidified starting job. Well, first of all, he's going to Syracuse. Who knows what's going on with Garrett Schrader? He's going to miss the bowl game because of an injury. I think he has a year left. Garrett Schrader from Syracuse, so who knows what will happen there, but he's pretty much handed the starting quarterback position at Syracuse. Why not? Syracuse has a chance with their light schedule, and I'll bring it up for you. Syracuse, you look at their schedule, they have a chance to win pretty much every single game, minus one or two that are tough games. Miami's a tough game, and there's another one I believe that's out there, but pretty light schedule overall
Yeah,
for
Derek, here we go. Let's
talking
let's
about an easy team.
let's discuss the schedule. Ohio at home, at Army, Holy Cross versus UConn. Those are four non-conference wins right there. Now we're talking about their conference schedule. They avoid North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State.
And
Those are
Notre Dame.
and Notre Dame they don't have to play this year. Those are the three best teams in the ACC and Notre Dame. Now, their conference schedule at Boston College, at Cal, who, yes, is in the ACC, at NC State, and at Pitt.
NC
Then
State, Pitt. I don't think it's gonna be a tough game, but NC State is a scary game because of McCall.
NC State and the cross country trip to Cal, you just never know. But at home, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Miami. Virginia Tech's on the come up, and Miami might get Cam Ward. But Derek, if you look at the schedule, you could easily say Syracuse is going to go 10-2 or 11-1. This team is going to be right in the ACC race next season. And I will tell you right now, this Syracuse Orange will be in the 2024 12-team college football playoff.
I think they have two losses. I think it's to NC State and Miami. The question with that would be you have a light schedule. It's a light schedule. Would you put in an ACC team with two losses who knows? Would they win the ACC? That's up for debate. If they win the ACC, yes, they're in with two losses. But if they're a non-ACC champ with 2 losses, with a not a great schedule, are they in the college football playoff? And I can't say they're going to be in because it's a light schedule. It depends on how Grayson McCall and NC State look. It depends on Miami. And I'm not sure there's going to be that many ACC teams in the college football playoff with 12. I see 2 or 3 teams, which would mean most likely, just going based off hypotheticals and what could happen, it would probably be Florida. This is not counting Notre Dame. This is not counting Notre Dame because they're not an ACC team. They're an FBS Independence. To me, it would be Florida State, Clemson, and then you'd probably have Miami if they get Cam Ward. That's assuming they get Cam Ward. But my out of the box thinking, I guess Derek delusion would be watch out for NC State to possibly make the jump to the college football playoff. I'm not saying they're going to go there. That's too delusional for me, but I think they have a great shot to get there. Not sure what their schedule is, but to me with Grayson McCall at quarterback, you can't count that team out. I think they got a great chance.
I didn't know there was a too delusional take for you, Derek. That's an impressive thing to find out here. I thought you were the king of delusions. But yeah, this schedule, and I'll watch out for Virginia Tech. I'm telling you, watch out for Virginia Tech. Made a bowl game this year. They're ascending. Drones is a beautiful fit at the quarterback position. But if I'm just looking at the Syracuse schedule, Miami's a tough game, but all these other games now going on the road to Cal, first time Cal. Jaden Ott is a monster in the backfield. Maybe Cal comes to the ACC and Stanford comes to the ACC and has more success because they have more talent in the ACC than some of these ACC schools right now. But Derek, I mean, the schedule is just so crazy. And they avoid Duke and Louisville. That's 5 of the 6 best teams in the ACC this year. They don't have to play. But we did see with Louisville last year, even if you have an easy schedule, a game can trip you up. Louisville lost to an awful 3-9 Pittsburgh team this season, and it cost them late in the season. It cost them a chance at a New Year's
That
Six
was a
game.
trap game there. So
But that's a trap game, and Syracuse has some of those. That's a rivalry game on the road at Pitt. So you never know. But jumping gears now, like we said, Cam Ward, it's potential he could join the Miami Hurricanes. And looking at their schedule next year as well, they're going to be right in the thick of the ACC race if he decides to go to South Beach.
yes, but let's remember they do have Mario Cristobal as their head coach,
That big.
and I think I've said it I don't know how many times, but I think he's Jimbo Fisher 2.0, in terms of just
Let me just
expectations too high and just not being able to.
interject right here. Jimbo Fisher does have a national championship. That is a
But
big.
yeah, but I'm talking about like expectations high, and he's just never gotten there. That's what I see with Mario
That's
Cristobal.
fair. That's fair. That's fair. And
Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if he's fired in the next 2 to 3 seasons.
hmm, hot takes. DJ DJU. DJ Uyunglele. Florida State.
I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. My question though is, does he want to go back to the ACC? He had struggles at Clemson in the ACC. Yes, he was good. Yes, he was bad at times. It was just mixture. Or he goes to Oregon State. That's where he succeeded. I think it makes sense. My only question is, would he want to stay on the West Coast? I think the reason he succeeded at Oregon State is, yes, there's cold in Oregon, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as if you're in the ACC in the nick of things. It makes sense, but I would not be surprised if he looks at Cal. That's another team where Cal going over to the ACC. Yes, I know I kind of mentioned why he shouldn't go to the ACC, but I think Cal brings a different dynamic than Florida State does because I think he wants to stay close to the West Coast in terms of where his team is. So that's where I would say is a possibility that no one's talking about. But I think Florida State at the end of the day makes a lot of sense. They'll be in the race. You mentioned it. Pretty light schedule for a lot of teams in the ACC. So Florida State, I think, is going to be in the top 3 in the ACC. I don't think there's a question there.
I don't think there's a question there, and I think they're going to be motivated. But man, if DJ went to Cal, Jaden Ott is the most under talked about running back in the country. That dude is full on electric. So the portal is moving. Will Howard's going to
Not
USC.
yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
He's going to USC. He's
Not
going.
yet. Not yet.
Doesn't matter. And that's an interesting fit. Will Howard's been awesome at Kansas State, but now you get Lincoln Riley. And if Lincoln Riley believes in you, big things are likely to happen. That caused Malachi Nelson to jump into the portal. Where is he going to go? And you look around the country, Ohio State has a big time opening at quarterback, but maybe Ohio State has a lot of faith in Devin Brown and their current quarterback room. Malik Murphy's now in the portal. He's been looking at Duke or Oregon State, maybe.
Sure.
Baylor just nabbed Daquan Finn from Toledo, which is a really sneaky big grab. Will Rogers, we got to talk about Will Rogers to Washington. A high octane offense, getting a guy like Rogers who played in a similar type of gun it offense. That makes a lot of sense. Mississippi State, they got Blake Shapen from Baylor.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
interesting. That's an interesting fit. So
It's quarterback.
the portal is moving, but one thing we got to remember into this future. Oh, well, I can't forget about my guy Aiden Schillis coming over to Michigan State. That's a tremendous jab from Jonathan Smith, who's grabbing guys left and right, bringing their star tight end over from Oregon State, building a super coaching staff. Watch out for Michigan State to put a 10-win season together next season. Elsewhere around the country, Riley Leonard to Notre Dame. Quickly, Derek, that's your school. I don't think you're completely thrilled with this.
I think it's a good selection. Is it a slam dunk selection? No. When you're talking about Notre Dame, academics are a huge part of recruiting.
It's hard
So I
to
think that's the out of the quarterbacks that you can get, I think that's the best quarterback that you can get. Is he the best quarterback in the portal? Some people are saying he's the best quarterback in the portal. I'm not one of those guys. I don't think there's a slam dunk number one guy. Maybe you disagree, but I think Riley Leonard is probably a top five quarterback that was in the portal, but I can't say he was the best quarterback in the portal, but he was the best available for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's going to be back in the race. I think they're going to make the college football playoff, but I think they're going to have two losses probably next season. They just got to avoid certain situations. They got three tough games next year, so I think they lose two and they win one.
I
Um,
think I think Riley Leonard to me feels a lot like Sam Hartman.
I think
I
he's better than Sam Hartman. I
feel
really
like
do.
Sam Hartman, and I think that's scary proposition, especially with Audric Estime probably leaving as well. I think
The
that's
running backs, though, I think
I
you're talking about an underrated backfield. They used five backs last
yeah
year.
I'm
You
not
lose,
gonna
you're down to four. You still got room, three to four backs. I think they'll be fine at back. I think the worrisome is in the offensive line, losing Joe Alt and you losing Blake Fisher. Those are the two guys that I think are the most worrisome.
and sneaky big thing. Notre Dame opens the season at Texas A&M, so that's Riley Leonard and Mike Elko, his former Duke head coach, going head to head. But Derek, elsewhere around the country, real quick. Michigan will also be looking for a quarterback. Maybe they love Alex Orgy. I know Gus Johnson loves the name there. Maybe he's the future. But the interesting thing, unlike this year in college football, you look at some of the biggest brands in college football. Jalen Milroe's going back to Bama. Quinn Ewers is going back to Texas. Carson Beck's going back to Georgia. Graham Mertz to Florida. These big schools, Cade Klubnik's probably going back to Clemson, though he's the king of mid. These schools, man, it seems like a lot of people are trying to bring back their stars. Some of the big schools, Bama and Georgia, bringing back quarterbacks for season two is scary. They've kind of avoided the portal, but the portal will find you. I know Bama takes advantage of the portal more than any of these big schools. If you look at what Bama's already done in the portal, they bring in some hog mollies on both sides of the ball. Shout out Dave Gettleman. They bring in some big time defensive tackles. They just stole one from Texas A&M. So while people are recruiting quarterbacks in the portal, Nick Saban's recruiting defensive and offensive linemen. Remember a couple years ago, Derek, he got Jameer Gibbs in the portal from Georgia Tech. So Bama knows how to use the portal. It's interesting. What do you just quick grand takeaways from this portal? What was the most surprising thing you've seen, and do you think it benefits teams like Alabama?
Surprising. I don't think there's been anything too surprising.
Oh, what
Just
about Georgia's oh, what's his name? The number one
Brock. Brock
no,
got is in the portal.
no, the
He
number one recruit in the country. Who just committed from
Dylan is going to Nebraska.
yeah, Dylan.
I think when you look at all these, Brock also, their backup quarterback, entered the portal. Nate Johnson entered the portal. He's going to Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilt quarterback, AJ Swan, is going to LSU. To me, that's honestly might be the biggest surprise. AJ Swan, the
No,
quarterback at Vanderbilt, going to LSU to be the backup quarterback. To me, that's a surprise. But overall, when you take from it, it's money. Yes, when you have a quarterback, you're able to go out there in the portal and find holes, find needs. However, if you're a team that needs a quarterback, I think you're five steps back of all the other teams in terms of portal from another standpoint. Notre Dame wanted to go out there. Their top target was Riley Leonard. They
I don't.
filled that role. They filled that role quickly because they know let's get two wide receivers. They already got two receivers now. Now they're gonna probably look at offensive linemen. Go out and get offensive linemen. They're probably gonna have to get a extra safety because Antonio Carter, their nickelback, has entered the portal. Add guys because if you find your quarterback late, you're losing out on defensive linemen, offensive linemen, skill positions all over the field. So quarterback is the most important position in terms of the portal. It's just how you use the portal and how you want to figure it out. And to me, it's beautiful to see. But having 162 quarterbacks, I want to say roughly, that have been in the portal, that's ridiculous. That
And
is
it is.
insane.
All right, before we wrap up, shout out Tom Izzo. Just when you think he's dead, this guy right here. Playing Baylor, neutral court. I know it's in Detroit, still in neutral court. Number 6 team in the country. We're 4-5 also. Derek knows I've been flipping about this Michigan State Spartans team all year because I finally thought I would have a team that is a top 5 team I root for, be dominant all season long. Number 4 in the country to start the year, start 4-5. I'm pissed off. What does this veteran team do? They pound Scott Drew in Baylor by 28 points in Detroit. Guess what, Derek? We jumped 30 points in the net rankings, and we are right back in the NCAA tournament discussion. Let's go, Tom Izzo, and shout out to the Marist Red Foxes. 5 straight wins for our school, baby. And Derek will be in South Bend this weekend. On Friday night is the Marist Red Foxes take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. His two schools collide. Derek, I know announcers aren't supposed to make a pick. Marist's going to shock the world.
It's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be within 5 points either way.
Okay, you guys got it. That's all we got for this episode of the Sports Geeks. We'll be back maybe later this week.